We're about a month after I launched the Scholarship and Diversity tiers on my Patreon.
We introduced the scholarship and diversity topic very briefly, I think, in the last episode. It's quite interesting, I think, to talk about the particulars of what you chose.
For the last couple of years, what has allowed me to move from having a day job as a programmer to a internet creator job, whatever it is called. Writer is what I tell my mum, but I don't think that's descriptive enough.
An internet writer? Do you write the internet?
Yes, I write the internet. Well, I did before, and I suppose I still do now. But I'm using English this time rather than code. What allowed me to bridge that gap? Money was coming in from YouTube ads, which was wonderful. And lots of people joined my Patreon, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And the money was life-changing, but not enough to pay all of my rent, so I had to keep the day job. What did allow me to bridge that gap and get away from the day job was setting up a mentoring tier where a few people had asked me if I would do lessons, if I do one-on-one tuition, that sort of thing. And I eventually said yes, because as a freelancer, you should always say yes when people offer you to pay you money. And it worked out really well. I got 10 or 15 people signed up, and that was enough for me to cover my bills. I don't quite make as much as when I was working a day job, 9 to 5, programming, but it's more than compensated for like how nice the work is. I'm my own boss, you know.
That was a question I had in my mind, actually, was whether at this point you are making as much money as you were making or not. But yes, no, I completely agree that like quality of life.
Oh my God, yeah.
Very much improved.
It's the backwards bending supply curve of labor, whereby when you offer people more hours, they take them, but after your boss increases your salary to a certain point, you actually choose fewer hours because your basic needs are being met, and actually you'd rather buy your life back through doing less work, but more well-paid work. Have we talked about this before?
I mean, you wouldn't necessarily. Sorry, if you'll allow me a tiny segue, because I found this quite interesting.
Right.
There's a podcast called The Happiness Lab, which I don't know whether I fully subscribe to, but sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I put it on because I think it helps sort of set my mood for the day.
Oh.
And the latest episode I was listening to is about this economist who I've forgotten the name of, but I can put it in the notes, who won a Nobel Prize a while ago, maybe in the 80s or 90s or something, because of all the work he'd done critiquing the standard model of economics. And one of the big ways is this thing that he called, I think he calls it the winner's paradox or something. And the way he characterizes it is this example where you go into a bar and you say, I've got this jar of coins. Whoever bids the most for this jar of coins can have them. And if there's, any significant number of people in that bar, the top bid for that jar will definitely be worth more than the actual number of coins in the jar. And so they will have lost out.
Right.
And I feel a little bit like this is relevant in this thing about the job, because you always want to be paid more, and therefore you always want to work harder. And sort of human nature doesn't really lead us to necessarily realizing that that's not really worth it from a personal perspective, if you see what I mean.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we feel like a winner.
Yes, of course. I feel a little like I must mention at this point that like my circumstances of where I live, the UK, means that I can afford to do this a bit more. If I was in a country that didn't have universal healthcare or safe streets or like stuff like that, I might want to hedge way more and earn as much as possible to hedge against future problems, future calamities. But I live in London. It's for all the small problems. It is lovely, safe. Like I won't go bankrupt if I need an operation or an ambulance to the hospital, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you do need, obviously, the social support structure around matters a lot. And I think probably a lot of our audience is American.
I would say so.
And the social support structure in America, obviously, if your job is the only way that you get good healthcare, you might want to think about that. Yeah, it's a good point.
I don't like thinking about it. So moving on, the last 2 years have been tremendously worthwhile from like a business point of view, and I've been able to buy back my time to make more creative works as well as supporting myself through mentoring. I estimate that maybe in about 5 years' time, maybe the other projects, YouTube and podcasts and so forth, would have increased their revenue to support my bills and so forth. But this has been a nice shortcut to get there. That's certainly my goal. My goal is not to rely on mentoring the whole time, though I'm very pleased to be doing it. Which leads me to, over the last 2 years, I've wanted to open my mentoring up to people like students who are less able to pay for it. The mentoring is quite expensive. One-to-one personal tuition is a very premium thing. And I've always felt a bit weird about it. But, my bank has opinions about how much money I should earn, and I have to follow what they would like me to do. That is now done. So last month, I opened up these 2 new tiers, mentoring and diversity. Initially, you and I, Robin, talked off air about I was initially just calling it scholarship, but also including diversity as well. By that, I mean my audience tends to be white men because the tech industry is overwhelmingly leaning in that direction. And I would like to do some affirmative action there to correct that in some small way. I was inspired by Makers Academy, which are a software retraining company here in London. And they do a 12-week conversion course, and like any degree or not even a degree, after 12 weeks, they can get you into like an entry-level web development position. And they have a 10% discount for women and non-binary people because their wording is very good in their blog posts. They talk about being able to they're in a position where they can in a small way correct the bias in the industry in a small way. And I thought, well, if I can do that, I'll give it a go. It's so small as to be almost trivial, but it is not nothing.
You may have mentioned it, but if you did, I'd forgotten that Makers Academy was your inspiration. But it's very useful. It's very interesting to know that's where it came from. Yeah.
They're brilliant.
Very nice.
To anyone in the UK who's listening, that if you want to learn programming, they're the way forward. Before the pandemic, I was aware of them because I was a senior lead engineer at companies. And whenever we were interviewing for positions, it was really obvious when someone had come from Makers Academy because they were excellent, not just technically, because they'd retrained. They were like, oh, here's a junior JavaScript developer. Well, that's fine. Here's a junior JavaScript developer with a law degree. Now you have my attention. It was amazing.
I feel there's also a thing about that is that people also who retrain into something else.
Yes.
I feel like they have a level of intention about it that is not there from someone who just comes in as a junior, at the age of like 20 or whatever. Because when you're 20 or so, you just kind of fall. You follow your feet and you fall into the path you fall into. But when you're older, it's the same with postgrads in courses because they come in like now. If I were to go and study at university, I'd be so much more committed to it than I ever was when I was at uni in my 20s.
Oh my God. Yeah. Right, exactly. I went to Plymouth University to do computer systems and networks for my degree. And I went to Plymouth because they were the only ones that would have me because I failed all my exams. I didn't intend to do any of it. I was just like, hey, what's available? What can I do that isn't like stacking shelves at Tesco? I didn't think I would be very well suited for that. And then my next degree, I've got a master's in software engineering from Southampton. That was a little bit more intentional. That's where I stopped in formal education. And as you say, if I'd gone on, to do like post-grad stuff, PhDs or whatever, your intentionality must increase as your brain matures and you actually know what you want to do.
I meant specifically the job because I think even, you do bachelor's, you do master's, you do PhD, that's still following a path. Yeah. I mean, particularly post-grad students, they've deliberately left a path they were on at an age where they actually understand how the world works to then come and say, I now want to go and do this new thing. And I think the amount of intentionality you need to do that is significant. And probably the people who are trained through Makers Academy, that's their journey, right?
Absolutely.
So they care about the thing to a level that I wouldn't have when I was like 24 working as a junior developer.
Yeah. We got into software, I expect I can speak for you, Robin, because it's fun. Someone who is retraining is getting into software because it's important for the way they want to live their life and they think it's profitable and they've seen the job market. Like they've got a way more holistic view than like computers fun. Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the end of the Makers story is that during the first lockdowns in 2020 and 2021, my wife and I were working next to each other, desks next to each other in the same room. And she was an accountant. She was trained as a chartered accountant. And I was a web developer in a fairly modern, relaxed team doing Agile, Scrum, that sort of thing in Python. And after like 6 months, she was like, okay, you guys are having way too much fun. How do I retrain to become a software engineer? I want to be a web developer. And she went to Makers Academy, my recommendation, and she had a great time there too. So I've seen it from both sides through Lucy's eyes.
And I suspect she's a much better
Highly
developer
recommended.
than you are, as we were talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like she reads documentation. Yeah, much better. Right. So the reason I brought up Makers Academy is because that made me think I should do a diversity initiative of some sort, as well as a financial hardship scholarship sort of thing. But originally I blurred them together, which made quite a lot of people, including you, I think, when we spoke about it, a little uneasy because it blended social disadvantage with financial disadvantage.
That's a very good description of my objections when we first spoke about it. Yeah.
So the solution, and thank you, Robin, for chatting to me about that, and thank you to all the people who gave me feedback on that single scholarship tier. Splitting them up into two was the right thing to do, and I now have two cohorts of steeply discounted 1/5 the price mentoring, and it's wonderful because I can help the people who I would never have reached otherwise. Like rich white men are doing fine as a rule.
Yes. So,
yeah.
Are they both the same discount then, these two different tiers? Because I haven't actually looked.
They are.
Right,
In a perfect world, there would be some more granularity, wouldn't there? But Patreon is quite a blunt instrument, and so I've just put them at the same price, just with some guidance. And I found a lot of people ask me, like they email me before signing up. Almost no one signs up. They email and ask for permission.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know, they say, "Oh, I'm a woman in tech. Do I qualify?" Or I'm a student, but I'm not actually at university. I'm doing some other complex thing. Do I qualify? And my answer to everyone is yes, God. What? Of course. Come on. yes, please. Like everyone's so cautious about it. Like in the back of my mind, my first reaction was, oh, what if people take advantage of it? And then immediately when I thought that through, I realized it would never happen because it's not like you're buying a product and pretending to be a student to get a discount. That happens all the time. What you're doing with what people are doing with mentoring is signing up for a professional relationship, like an ongoing relationship, where we will talk about their studies or talk about the challenges of being neurodiverse in our industry or whatever.
Yeah.
The idea of lying would mean that you shouldn't have the mentoring.
I do think that's a very good point. Yeah. Although this kind of goes back to this podcast I was listening to this morning as well, because people will generally do antisocial stuff much less than core sort of game theory economics would suggest that they would. People don't just try and game the system just because because if you add it up on paper, it's profitable, right? In general.
Right.
Like one of the clearest things was if people find a wallet and it has some money in it, you would think that the more money there is in the wallet, the less likely they'd be to return the wallet full of money. But it turns out the more money that's in the wallet, the more likely they are to return the wallet full of money.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
That makes sense. Yeah, God, it'd be like it's empathy, right? Like if I lost £500 in my wallet, that would ruin that could have huge repercussions. And so if you find £500 in a wallet, it's like you would think, oh gosh, this person really needs help.
Exactly. Yeah.
They can't lose this.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's other complex thoughts, but that's lovely.
Yeah, it's very nice.
These two new mentoring tiers going really well, and I'm delighted.
Tris, I'm curious, how many people have actually signed up for this since you launched it?
Well, each tier, the diversity mentoring and scholarship mentoring is capped at 10 people, so 20 in total. And I think 17 have signed up, 9 and 8 across each.
So it's very close to
nearly fully booked.
Yeah, incredible. Oh, so clearly it's very popular.
It is, and I couldn't be happier. So one of the reasons, apart from it being a nice thing to do and maybe the right thing to do and so forth with the new tiers is that it also reduces my exposure to a single person unsubscribing causing me financial hardship.
You mean mentoring in general does? Like if
I mean the new tiers, because they're much less. They're $50 a month, which is much less than the normal mentoring tiers, but
Okay.
there are way more of them. So it sort of spreads the risk.
I see.
There's probably a name for this
Oh, right.
in investing. Like it diversifying my investments, I suppose.
But it takes up more of your time.
Is that like? Yes, certainly.
I mean, it's a significant discount. Presumably, the previous tiers, the previous pricing structure, was such because you only have so many hours. The rest of your hours you're trying to put into editing podcasts. So does that mean are you suggesting that inherently you're therefore shifting that time from editing time and therefore time that's supporting YouTube or podcasts into mentoring time at a lower rate?
Yes, I suppose so. Yeah, it's
Right.
it's like I've become more of a teacher with this decision.
That's true. That's a good point.
And diversifying my income is the reason I waited until Patreon was paying most of my bills before I quit my day job. I didn't do what many people do, which is rely on adverts or paid promotions through YouTube, because that is risky.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we should talk about that for a bit.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
In the table of contents, we're calling this the cautious creator. And I think that describes me. I don't think of myself as a very cautious person, but I'm married to someone who is a qualified accountant. So I have excellent advice.
Yeah.
I have been given excellent advice.
You mean, we have actually discussed this quite a lot off air. And that's why we chose this as a topic for this episode. And in it, you have a way of thinking about deplatforming, which is a term I really like the sound of, which I think is quite an interesting model for how you effectively protect yourself from being too much at the mercy of the whims of very large monopolies who have no real interest in looking after your livelihood.
I talked about diversifying before, but like it's got a specific name, as you say, deplatforming in the creator community. I am sure that you, as well as our listeners, will have seen a creator of some sort, YouTuber, someone on TikTok, anyone in the public eye, say something like, link in my bio, subscribe to my Substack, get on my mailing list, come to this site and sign up for memberships, like a whole litany of different options. And the reason that is so pervasive is because it shows that the platform they are on, YouTube or TikTok or what have you, are inherently risky for them, and they know it. And they would really like as many of their audience as possible to come over to this second place. And the place for me is Patreon, but it can also be a mailing list, a Substack, and like whatever. Come over to that place and get more personal content, more reliable content, and critically for them as the creator, gives them a more direct access and direct control of their audience, because the platforms deliberately do not give you this control.
Yes. They also have an interest in making you put your link to deplatform somebody, like making the task of putting that in front of one of your listeners as hard as possible, which is why you often have, is it Discord or something? One of these platforms is particularly scary when you click on a link and it's like, this link's going to take you off this platform. Are you sure you want to do that? Like,
yes, that's Discord. I think Rick Astley has a lot to take the blame for there.
that's very generous of you.
I think Twitter does it worst. They actually censor links to competing platforms. Like you can't paste a Mastodon.
Absolutely, yeah,
on
no.
Twitter.
Any of these tactics, you can see it being brazenly done with a complete mask off over on X.
Yes. Listeners of a certain delicate age will remember when you could just paste links and have them floating over YouTube videos at any point in the video and just a little post-it, a little link whenever you want, a little caption. And people made like games, choose your own adventures, skill, ranking lists, like all kinds of stuff, or like whatever. But when YouTube switched from Flash to HTML5 video, they did not bring that functionality over. Instead, giving us the pinned video at the top right and the end screen. Those are much, much, much more limited. The pinned stuff is really miserable for me because as an educator, I talk about more than 6 things. And in a video length of my like about 10 minutes, you can link to 6 things. And they have to be kind of evenly spaced. And you can only link to a thing once. Like it's miserable. And it's extremely suspicious. As you say, it's obvious what they are doing. So people do this deplatforming to gain a bit of control back. And it's an essential part of being a creator. You can't start with an emailing list. Like my dad could start a mailing list and then tell 3 friends, and he would have 3 people on the mailing list. Anyone could upload a YouTube video and it could go viral. Anyone could make their first TikTok video and it could go viral. That's the promise of the platforms.
Good example for that, I suppose, could be my website, because I've had this blog for a long time. I've never done any advertising on it whatsoever. I've never paid for any promotion on it. I have at various times tried to, share articles that I've written on various platforms like Hacker News, Twitter, whatever, but only a little bit. And then about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, I decided to add the ability to subscribe to a MailChimp mailing list to the blog. And the growth in that, like, it took a long time for that thing to get like 20 subscribers. And then now it's got hundreds, certainly hundreds, maybe like 800 or something. I'm not sure, but I don't know if they're real. They could all just be fake. But I haven't really been publishing any content at all. It's a very interesting dynamic.
You've been busy. This deplatforming, moving from platforms that have an algorithm that can generate you a viral hit, moving people off that onto a different platform, like a mailing list or Patreon or something like that, where you can target them directly or maybe even charge them money. I see that as audience-making platforms on one side, and then a continuum down to the other side, which is money-making platforms.
Yeah. And what you mean by that is that an audience-making platform is one where the main value that they deliver is kind of in audience. It's kind of in that you can grow your audience, and therefore you're not going to be paid a huge amount because the value proposition is largely taken up by this audience growth potential. And then as you move into platforms where you get paid better, the audience growth potential drops because the value proposition more or less stays the same. And so if one increases, the other has to drop. That's what you basically mean.
2 examples perhaps will make it clear. On one side, you've got TikTok before they paid any ads. So like early days of TikTok, when there was no creator fund, no products, no TikTok shop, none of this stuff. And all it was, oh, cool, look at this funny platform. I'm like, you can go viral. You don't get any direct money from that, but you get an audience, and an audience can be converted to money. So it was valuable from the start. The other side of that is a mailing list, where people have to sign up and they get emails from you on the topics that you write about. It is extremely personal to sign up to a mailing list because you get access to, or you give access to your most personal inbox. You're meeting the customer right where they are, which is checking their mail. They're in a mode to read through things, and you can ask them for money.
Yes, right. So the point is that it's that the algorithm effectively between you and your users, this is almost a spectrum of algorithm. It's like there's an algorithm between you and your audience. And in YouTube, you don't get to directly say only the people who I'm going to talk directly to the people who subscribe to me. You have all these subscribers in theory, but YouTube actually takes all that away from you because they don't really show people only the people they subscribe to at all. They show them what they want to show them.
Yes.
Whereas in the case of email, you get a direct line to the people you know have subscribed to you. So that's the spectrum that you mean.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it's like a direct link or relevancy, perhaps. Like having a lot of audience is all very well. A lot of views is all very well. Yeah.
Well, but to me, that's the difference. In theory, if YouTube was not liars, right, in the way they've designed their platform, then that would simply be the difference between subscribers and views. Because subscribers are people who actually have chosen to subscribe to your channel and will now see your videos. Because if YouTube was I would say the implication behind someone subscribing to a YouTube channel is something like that they will necessarily get a notification when you publish a new video, for example. If that's not really true, what do you mean by subscriber? And I would say YouTube has really blurred the line of what exactly they mean by subscriber. Very deliberately.
This time next year, no subscribers.
Right. Yeah. But if they were actually genuine about it, then a subscriber would be just as good as a mailing list subscriber, because it
would certainly be better.
Well, but the thing you're talking about is literally just that you can deliver that message directly to that person, right?
Yes, I think the medium matters too. Like having email is quite a personal thing. You're reading it; it goes directly to the person. Even further down from email might be, I don't know, a WhatsApp mailing list. Sounds awful. Sign up for SMS notifications. Sounds awful. But like that would be even more personal, wouldn't it? That would actually notify you. Maybe Telegram groups do this.
Yeah, no, that's true. So notifications, the power of the notification you get to send someone matters a lot. And to me, email is not that. Nowhere near. Like, I rarely check my email. If I get something from a mailing list I've subscribed to, I'm pretty unlikely to actually read it. Like, the only emails I care about are ones that are something new. On YouTube, isn't there don't they say hit the bell? Isn't that like a thing that means I now want notifications every time this person publishes a new YouTube video?
Yes, awful.
I feel a bit like
meaningless.
Is it meaningless?
Yes. Imagine if you subscribe. Imagine if you hit notifications for every single channel you're subscribed to. 100 notifications every day, all the time. You switch them off immediately. Like it's self-limiting.
You would. So you wouldn't do that. No, but what I mean is, to me, that's the real subscribing. Because what does subscribing mean if it's not I want to get a notification? What I'm saying is, I think if I actually did that on a video, like let's say some more news I actually want to know when they publish a new video. So I've installed the YouTube app, and now I say, give me notifications every time some more news publish a video, and now it gives me notifications. That's actually something I'm much more likely to pay attention to than an email I get from a mailing list subscription.
Fair enough. Not everyone thinks like that. Some people prefer notifications. Some people prefer emails. Like you've got to spread out your, you've got to deplatform onto multiple things. You've got to give people the option. Where do you want to get this? Do you want to get updates by email, on Mastodon, by notification?
But I think that means that the notifications point particularly is a little more complicated for me, because I don't think a mailing list, I don't think what I would call a more empowered, as in you having more control over the relationship between you and the user, the listener, the audience, at least in the form of an email mailing list, necessarily gives you more ability. Probably, I mean, it does. I guess it does, because YouTube are designing how encouraged you are to subscribe to any given video. But the trouble with that, the thing is that you fundamentally got the phone operating system sitting between your connection to the user anyway. Like, it controls all notifications. So maybe part of the reason why I feel like if I asked for notifications on a particular YouTube video, I'd actually be more likely to pay attention to that than I would to a mailing list, might be something to do with the way that Google have designed Android and Google have designed Gmail, to be honest.
Yes, perhaps. And also, everyone manages their email differently. Some people can somehow manage an inbox zero, pristine, perfect situation. I'm very fortunate.
I don't know. I feel like, no, I reject that a little bit, or I want to push back on it.
Right.
I think that my experience of email just never being a reliable way to get a useful notification is very common, at least. I'm not going to say universal, but very, very common. And as I say, I think it actually is quite an important point that the Android or Apple have a lot of control over the stickiness of any given notification that you might get. And the app notifications tend to be much more, they have much more power.
I am astonished to hear you say this.
Really?
Because you are admitting that you are letting Google control your notifications when you could invest some time into figuring out getting email working better, and then you would be free of their influence in this regard.
Okay. Why does that surprise you?
Like, you understand where the control points are in the digital attention economy, and I'm
okay. But this is like the point we were talking about last time. Like, we're all trapped in the system.
Maybe. I don't have notifications on my phone.
Okay.
Just turn them off.
But like, you could. But then you have to make sure that you've designed a whole load of other ways to get the things you actually need to know about.
Indeed.
Like, you can do that, but you are definitely, I mean, I am not, like, you're speaking as if you are the 50th percentile when you're about the 99th percentile in that regard.
No. I'm speaking directly to you, Robin. I understand that most people use their phones in the way that Google makes.
Okay, right. But what I'm saying is I'm not you. There are places in which I am probably a massive outlier. But in most ways, I'm going to be closer to the average, as you are. Right? There's going to be most ways in which I'm closer to average and you're closer to average. Trying to do what you're describing is a huge amount of effort, and you'd have to like really, really focus on taking control of that particular part of your life. Me having the values I have has nothing to do with whether I've successfully managed to claw back any bit of power from the system, is what I'm suggesting.
Fair enough.
But, I mean, as I think is true with you, I think there's going to be thousands of ways in which you don't live your values, right? Because you just haven't focused on making that.
I'm a YouTuber who doesn't like YouTube. Like, we all live in paradoxes, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the deplatforming discussion.
Yes.
What we prepared, or what you prepared sorry, I can't say we. I didn't do any of this. You prepared this graph where you put some platforms on this graph where one axis is like, are you getting audience or money? Like, it's audience to money, as in, is the value that they give you paid in audience or is it paid in money? And then up the other axis was power, which I'm responsible for putting there, I think. And the reason is that I think this is a different dimension. I think this is a very interesting discussion we had that led us to here.
Yes, the listener is going to hear the final thesis based on like 3 hours of brainstorming by you and I. By the way, you started by saying we, oh no, actually you. No, we made this quadrant. I made left, right. You made up, down. Go on, please.
Okay.
Credit where credit's due. Do go on. With
Thank you. That's very kind. Yes. No, so to me, what's inherent in deplatforming is the idea that you're trying to take your livelihood and wrench it from platforms into being under your own control. Now, this is definitely something of a spectrum, because if you wrench your audience off YouTube and you put them somewhere else, you're probably still reliant on platforms to some extent. But
Yes.
as in, you gave me the example of you put a link that's like subscribe to my Substack in the description of the YouTube video, direct people there when they're listening to your YouTube video. The better thing about Substack is another platform. Substack still has control through being another platform that you're accessing your audience through. But the better thing about Substack is that hopefully at the time of recording, I don't know this because I don't really know Substack, but you say it's true, you actually get the email addresses of the people who subscribe to your Substack
at time of recording.
Time of recording, and that's quite an important point, because the central thing that I'm thinking about is how much control have you actually got over the dynamics of where you make your money. So YouTube could be paying you consistently £3,000 a month, every month for 5 months, and there is absolutely nothing to guarantee you that they're not going to change some facet of the algorithm without an update, without asking your permission, and next month you're going to earn £500, because they fundamentally control the algorithm that decides how much money you're paid, and the algorithm that decides how much of the audience that YouTube control see your videos. And to me, that progression in power, control over the way in which you can connect with the audience is the really centrally important thing. And there is something of a relationship between that and the amount of money you're given, we're sort of suggesting, but it does feel like a different axis.
Yeah, there's definitely I think there is a clear, intuitive, and it shows up on our quadrant graph that the listener will be able to look at. We'll put a link in the show notes. There is definitely a relationship between, like, platforms where you don't have much power tend to be the ones that offer you an algorithm that can put your content in front of thousands of people, and platforms where you have total power aren't obliged to give you anything, so they don't. But you can have more direct access to those users and can then advertise and ask for money and products and services and that sort of thing.
I mean, there is the point that, like, at least in the current world, like in an ideal world, the amount of power that I would like we would like for people to be doing social media through a fully decentralized social media service based on open web standards, and therefore there was no central authority that had any power over the way that you're distributed to your social media audience. And you're taking payments through some open source payment software that you run on your own server, on your own website. And you're like, this would be the ideal, fully empowering infrastructure for you to reach an audience. That's kind of a fantasy in today's world. So in the best version of this, you're still going to be sitting on top of a bunch of platforms, as in your mailing list will be managed by MailChimp. But I guess a version of that deplatforming to me is therefore also the diversification that you started off talking about at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you're a YouTube creator, the entirety of your connection with your audience is through YouTube. And therefore it is deplatforming simply to spread your audience across a few platforms. It's further deplatforming to use a stack of different services in the way that you reach your audience.
Yes, it's a very good idea to both deplatform to platforms you have more power, and multiple of those. Like, don't just check out my Substack, also here's my Patreon, that sort of thing. Absolutely. Yeah. In many ways, it seems like the old problem with musicians and labels. Like, the Beatles can be as good as anything, but the labels bridged the gap to America.
Yeah.
Like, is it Apple, their label? I forget what the name of their label. But like, your label has resources to get your posters up, get your CDs in record stores, get your tracks being played on at the radio station by DJs. Like, their offer to you is virality, sort of.
Sure.
Which, if you were doing it yourself, you would not you would not be able to. You'd only be able to have linear word of mouth. Feels
which is why it was
kind
a
of like
really
that.
it was a really big thing about trying to get black artists represented by labels. Like that was a massive
Right.
sort of battle, I guess, in the 60s or so, because they simply just weren't given the access at all. Like the labels were like, I was reading this thing about how Billie Jean, like Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, was a very significant point where some Universal Records, I don't know, some really famous record company said, we've learnt our lesson after they after they realized how much more popular Michael Jackson was than the white artist that they had been insisting on supporting for a very long time.
It's amazing. Yeah, no, like 3 orders of magnitude of data must be very persuasive.
Yeah. No, so
That's extremely funny.
it is the same point, but then of course the record labels have now all been given a piece of the very powerful Spotify platform, which is
yeah. Oh my god. Yes. Yeah. As a musician, Spotify every year Spotify give me a few pence, and I look at like the thousands of plays. It's like, well, thanks Spotify, wonderful. So I try to deplatform my people to Bandcamp from Spotify, but of course Spotify doesn't let me message my audience. That would be too easy. I think the problem that black artists had before Billie Jean that you have talked about, that I don't know much about.
Sorry, it didn't entirely go away with Billie Jean. I just want to put that in there for the.
No, I can imagine. It sounds like the same problem exists currently with LGBT creators, and especially creators working in the kink and sex like areas. Like you can't say that sort of stuff on YouTube. You can say it on OnlyFans, but OnlyFans do not have an algorithm. Like you're not going to discover people by like browsing some front page. You would do that on TikTok, on YouTube, but you can't do that. So people who use these platforms for their livelihood, sex educators and others, have to engage in like ancillary content creation on YouTube and the other ones. Like a good example is Dr. Lindsay, who does explanations on YouTube, which is a like sex ed course. No adverts run against those videos because they would get demonetized because of the content. A different, going back to music, a different problem is the copyright problem. Because you can't play music, someone like Adam Neely, who is a professional bassist who makes videos about music and music creation and so forth, in one of his videos, he pointed out that he can't teach you music on YouTube because the way you teach music is you play a few minutes of Tchaikovsky, or you play a few minutes of Earth, Wind and Fire, and you study it together and go, listen to that bass line, listen to that, the way that Tchaikovsky wrote this section. And now let's piece it apart. You can't do that. You play more than 3 seconds and you get a copyright strike. So you can't teach music in the way that it has always been taught. You have to deplatform onto Patreon or Substack or whatever. It's not always about money. It's about escaping the limitations of the platform, and they're bullshit.
Yeah. Well, this is an important thing, is I think, to an extent, these platforms can keep you in there by saying you have to play by the rules. And if you do play by the rules to some extent, you might keep their favor, and they might keep like actually letting you earn a livelihood. And I think that there are many, many ways in which they're subtly doing that all the time. And I think you and I have spoken about the extent to which we, as a product, as in Decapsulate as a project, we're both very aligned in trying not to be led by market forces. But I think that there are many, many ways in which all of those market forces try to lead you, encourage you in ways that even if you think you're very woke to it, they will try to encourage you into forming your message in just the way that is palatable to the platform. And on YouTube, the amount you swear, the amount you certain, you certainly shouldn't be saying things like Zionist or I don't know, like
No.
there are certain words that you cannot get away with saying. And that's just an example of the sort of power that they have.
So we've talked very tactically about the real world problems of the platforms and the real world, the things you should do as a creator, or that you have to do with deplatforming and diversification, all that stuff. But let's zoom out. And I want to hear from you, Robin, because this is your wheelhouse, not mine. I want to hear about why they're doing all this, what we need to be concerned about, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I want to do this topic actually a little bit because I know that we talk presumably to a significant amount of software engineers. And this is
or
not...
at least tech literate people, yeah.
Tech literate people. Well, this is certainly not an exclusive topic for software engineers, but I do think if you work in software engineering, you are building the system of which I'm about to speak. And because of that, I think it's quite important for people to have certain vocabulary as they do it.
Yes. Names have power.
Yes, that's kind of why I wanted to bring in the topic. I think we know that the world has got worse. There was a huge promise in the internet in the 90s and 2000s that we were very excited about.
The old internet.
It was a place where you could go and find fellow hackers in almost an unlimited number of ways. And you could create stupid creations that just did really fun things, drawing links between people and throw up really stupid artwork. And it was chaotic and ugly and great. And
beautiful.
Yeah. And it felt...
You could find your people, I think.
Maybe. But it felt like the future was going to be the Enlightenment realized, where everybody was now sharing and building on each other's ideas, and there was no limit to all the social links that we could create and all that sort of thing.
Epitomized by the EFF's late and great John Perry Barlow, I think, who I can quote from memory because he wrote the Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace. Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel, I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. We all thought it was going to be like that.
Yes, precisely, yeah. So
I'm not even reading. That's up here. That's permanently in my brain.
Yeah, so I think I'm probably not alone in being pretty disappointed about where the world has gone. And it's mostly gone that way, I think, because tech companies have built power in a way that the rest of the world, was not really paying enough attention to prevent. And I think understanding the character of the power they've built is pretty useful if we want to improve the world from this point forward.
Yeah, their walled gardens have got higher and higher walls.
Yes, and an important piece of that is that we thought the people who founded these tech companies were just like us and had good values, and therefore we could give them all the power and they would do good things with it.
Yeah, Google literally, we're supposed to do no evil.
Surprise, surprise. Turns out that when they've got the power, they support right-wing movements and they just make huge layoffs and redundancies, and they try to create all sorts of tech that just pushes people out of jobs and drives down everyone's salaries and everything, which is not surprising.
Yeah, it's been a big disappointment. I don't know if some of the younger members of our audience might not have lived in a time that Robin and I lived through, where we really wanted to be hired by Google. It would have been the most prestigious job in the career. I've had 2 Google interviews in my time, one in 2008, one in 2010. They're famously difficult and I didn't get through, but everybody wanted them. And now couldn't pay me enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had several years ago, I had a recruiter reach out to me for Google, and they said, this is the character of the interview. Go away and, prepare, and then tell me when you're ready. And I did for a while. I bought the big thick book of how to prepare for the coding interview. Yeah, and I did all the research, and then I never actually got back to them. And my drive to do so has only gone down and down and down and down, and now I just have no interest.
Yes.
I think I'm going to start with trying to describe techno-feudalism because I think it's very, very helpful. So Yanis Varoufakis has written this book called Techno-Feudalism, and it was a shift in thinking for me because while I knew many of what we just described, the ways in which these platforms will use various levers to try to fit everybody into the boxes and the way of behaving that is most profitable for them, or maybe just drives their interests in a different direction. This is a sort of high-level theory, which, well, it's a shift in thinking for me. What he says is that we all think we know what capitalism is. Free market capitalism is where you have the freedom to create a business. You can market your products to other people. There will be a certain level of perfect information, I suppose. You'll be able to show that your products in the marketplace are cheaper than the next person's products or are better than the next person's products. And so therefore, through pure competition, you will do better. And if you're therefore creating good products and you're working hard, you will win. Your business will go up.
Not only that, but such a system, due to the inherent efficiencies, is good for the customer as well.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go in a direction that I could go in there, which is all of the holes in the standard economic model. But the important point is that Yanis says we are no longer in capitalism. He says we have moved on from capitalism. Capitalism has destroyed itself, eaten itself. And we've moved from a single market where you have a bunch of different people trying to compete into what he calls techno-feudalism. So feudalism is a system where you have lords of the land, and they have people working the land, and they pay those people enough to just sort of keep them alive so they can keep working the land. And most people's existence under a feudal system is as wholly owned people serving the Lord and being given enough to stay in that role. But they don't have any rights over the land within which they live.
Amazing.
So the theory of techno-feudalism is that each of these platforms is like a feudal state.
Specifically, we're talking about the FANG platforms, approximately, aren't we? Big ones.
Yes, although I think the idea is that it's sort of it works at a small level as well. You're just a smaller feudal lord. Like,
right.
The real capital is in a feudal system. What makes the difference is that you own the land. When you have a feudal, you get to be the duke of this land, then you get to control that little space. You might have a small one, you might have a huge one. But fundamentally, that's the difference between being a feudal lord and being a, I have forgotten the terms, but anyway, being, somebody who works on it. Like, what's a serf in this, in a feudal state?
A serf, right? They're the people that work on the land.
Okay. Yeah.
So indentured serf.
Right. If I'm trying to create robinwinslow.co.uk, right? Or sorry, I think it's not robinwinslow.uk. I should probably know the name of my own website.
It's both, right? One redirects to the other.
One redirects to the other, sure. That is really a play, that's my feudal territory, I suppose. It's just that I don't get to live very much within it. But the point is that when you, if you want to sell almost any physical product nowadays online, and you're not selling it on Amazon, you are unlikely to be able to sell it. So you don't have a free market. You have the choice of whether you want to go and try and sell within Jeff Bezos's, or whoever the CEO of Amazon is. But I mean, I think, is it still fair to say it's owned by Jeff Bezos? Anyway.
I believe so.
Let's say Jeff Bezos, within Jeff Bezos's feudal state. And the reason why it is very much Jeff Bezos's feudal state is because you don't get to choose where you're ranked in the rankings. Most people don't. I mean, talk to. So this is where it overlaps with Intuitification. I mean, if you go and listen to Intuitification or read the book of Intuitification. Oh, if anyone wants to hear the introductory chapters of Intuitification, Cory Doctorow's podcast, he just read out like much of the book in episode 500. If you search for it, I'm sure you'll find it.
Right.
He describes very well all of the ways in which Amazon have a bunch of different case studies. Amazon's one of them. Amazon, Apple, possibly Spotify, how they all have control over their domain and they keep control over their domain. And the point is, there is no free market now. There is only greater and lesser feudal lords who control different markets within their feudal town.
Right.
So if the actual price of making your product is 70p, Amazon take 30% commission, you have to sell it for £1 on Amazon. So you now have to sell it for at least £1 elsewhere. And you have to convince other people to pay at least £1, even though the thing only costs you 70p to make. So you then can't compete anywhere else.
That is worse than I thought it was.
So
how awful.
The amount of control these platforms have is huge, and everybody knows that. And what that's done is it's completely reset the logic of the let's say, global competition space, if we don't want to use the term market, so we don't confuse people. Because now what you're trying to do, if you set up a new business that is independent, is to try to take some of this take your slice of this feudal space. So it's not enough for you to be producing a product well and selling it well. You now have to have your own online delivery mechanism, and you have to use all the same tricks as they use to try to solidify your power to be able to control your audience. Because if you don't do that, you then have no choice but to sell on Amazon, and you will then progressively have all of your money stolen because Amazon will take too much in commission. They won't let you sell anywhere else. And then eventually they'll just roll your product into their Amazon Basics line, and you won't, and then they just won't promote you at all. And they'll just sell everything directly.
Awful.
So I think this is very important to understand, because I think that, as a professional working in the creation of online services, you are being asked to create many, many different things that I think are a piece of this sort of this control puzzle. Like they're trying to. So if you are, I see this all over the place in little design decisions that you might be making in the building of an app, right? Like you made the point about how they used to allow you to put links on YouTube videos, right? Then they upgraded to HTML5, and when they upgraded to HTML5, you can no longer do that. There's a perfectly rational way to explain to everybody why you don't do it anymore, which is because it was harder in HTML5, and we couldn't.
It's a good excuse,
right? Exactly. We couldn't afford the engineering time.
Yeah, Google couldn't afford.
Right. Those sorts of prioritization decisions get made all the time, and I think as a worker in tech, you shouldn't just be letting uncritically accepting that somebody's made the decision that this is prioritized over that, without being aware that it very likely fits into a larger, bigger picture business strategy, which kind of has no choice but to be a little bit competing in this kind of feudal system, if you see what I mean. So, I mean, I find that really like a very transformative way of thinking about the modern economy. Obviously, it's very depressing.
Yeah,
and it's probably not perfectly true, but it's to have the option of thinking about it in that way and be look at a particular messed up situation and be is this better described by market capitalism, or is it better described by techno-feudalism?
I first heard the expression techno-feudalism. I've not read this book that you mentioned, that we will link in the show notes. I first heard this expression from Cory Doctorow's blog in his article, "All Capitalists Want to be Feudalists." And it explained basically what you have explained, and the idea that you might start out with a very disruptive free market product like Netflix, where you undercut the competition and you provide a better service for the users. But then once you've got all the users, what you want to do is keep them. And that changes the business strategy from one of disruptive capitalism, where you have to actually give the users the features they want, to ones of feudalists, where you prevent them leaving or destroy or absorb competition. And so there is no competition left. Now, capitalism without competition, what's that? It looks an awful lot like feudalism. And the way that I think Corey described it is that it's so transparent, because you don't listen to what a company says, what their publicity is, what they're saying. What you do is you read their annual investor reports, where the truth lies. And in the annual investor reports, they talk about how the companies who want the investors to keep investing or to be happy, they talk about how they've absorbed this number of competition. They've destroyed the X competition or Y competition, or they might have done nothing. And the investor portfolio, the investor booklet, notes that this competitor went out of business. Isn't that good for us? Or they'll talk about how they've secured certain patents, usually through purchasing companies, purchasing patents or other restrictions on the freedom of the market or whatever. And it's because they don't want to be capitalists. They don't want to compete with other people. Investors certainly don't want their investment to have to compete. They'd love to be feudalists, where they don't have to compete at all. They just churn out money.
Yeah. So this is upstream of Cory Doctorow's very popular theory of enshittification.
Yeah.
Because it describes why it happens, basically. So the theory of enshittification is that as an online service or business, you start off by offering a great product because you want to get loads of users. So you offer great value for users, and it's wonderful, and everybody comes and joins you. And in a lot of cases, they were giving away, significant things for free. Then when you've got all the users, then you start to exploit your users to say to the businesses, "Oh, I've got all these users now. Come and do business with me." And then
advertise,
right?
Yeah,
you have a great, and you give them a great deal because you can afford to, because you've got all these users that you can exploit. And then after a while, you've worked out how to entrap your businesses, and then you now just start exploiting your businesses to then deliver to the shareholders. And that's and the quality of the product goes down and down and down, right? Like it goes down, it's like, to start with, it, the thing that really matters is the quality of the product for the users, but it also, the quality of the product for the businesses significantly drops, which is why it's important to think, in techno-feudalism terms, your standard businesses are also a lower class, right? They're not, your small business owner that everybody, politically, all politicians want to say they want to protect. Your small business owner is just another exploited class, because they just get completely fleeced by the people with the real power. And that is, so techno-feudalism is the structure for why enshittification is inevitable, more or less. That's how I think about it.
That is new information to me. That is a very, very clear way of saying it. Thank you very much for telling me that, Robin. Techno-feudalism is upstream from enshittification. Enshittification, by the way, the explanation that Corey gives, and you'll excuse me adding to yours, is that first you give all the value to the users, then you carve out the value and give some of that to your business partners, and then finally you carve out the value from your business partners and give it all back to you in the middle, so that neither the users nor the business partners have any value. You've got it all.
Yeah.
Awful. Hate that for me. Like I Deliveroo, like last year, or I don't know, they were like, "Hey, you're going to have to start paying delivery charges, even though you are a premium subscriber." And I was like, "Really? You're going to have to fucking get off my bank account then? Goodbye." Like if there's multiple levels of premium, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
and
I did the same.
We're in an age where you can just see this happening all over the place, right? Like every service is just getting more and more expensive and more exploitative. And this is why. And I think it's useful to understand why, and it's particularly useful to understand for the people who are helping to build it. I'm not judging you for building it at all, because I work for a tech company. We only do our best.
You got to eat. Yeah. No judgment.
We're trapped by the system. Absolutely.
It's a comic, I think, or something like that. Like, hey, great news! We've built this cool new product called the Torment Nexus, inspired by the book "Don't Make the Torment Nexus."
Yeah.
Like science fiction is like, you weren't supposed to make the Panopticon. That was a cautionary tale. Like, we need a sort of a programmers union where we all agree that we're not going to build the killer robots. Like, the feudalists who run the companies, they can't build the killer robots without us.
Yeah.
We're the ones that will actually be building it.
That's a good idea. So if anybody out there in our audience wants to help us, start the developers union,
yeah,
do reach out.